What's up? It's Twaxter. I got another video about Deadlock. Just before I say anything, I'm fairly decent at the game. I was top 0.1% at one point. Now I hover around top 2 to 3%. I've also played the game since June. I have almost 200 hours in the game. So what I'm talking about, I think I have some authority, some knowledge, but obviously I don't know everything and I'm learning everything as I go. But I've seen a large influx of players to Deadlock. They're in my games, and just FYI, the lanes themselves are actually matched, but the game itself isn't totally matched. So you can have a game where you can have two noobs playing in one lane and then a really good player in another lane, and that's why switching lanes is very difficult. But yeah, I've seen this happen in my games, and I thought I'd just make a video about five mistakes to avoid, and let's just get started. So tip number one, always be farming. I've seen this very often where even when I started, I'd be winning my lane, I'd be getting the last hits, I'll even get a gank, and then I go to another lane, I help them gank, maybe get some last hits, and then come back, and then I look at the souls and I'm behind. So the main thing, especially during laning phase, is just to get souls. So try to get loot as you're moving in between lanes. You can farm the crates, you can farm the imp statues. That's gonna give you some bonuses. Those are super important. And also, if you have more time, you can go and farm the camps. So just make sure you're always be farming. You're always maximizing the time that you have in the game. Um, if you're grouped up with your team, make sure that it's for something important and there's some sort of impact. If you don't get any impact from grouping up, you're basically losing farm every other place where there's no hero that's kind of last hitting the minions. And it's a lot of money. Potentially when you get late game after 10 minutes, or sorry, mid game, each minion gives you 200 gold, which is basically just under a kill. So if you farm a wave, that's like getting a kill. So it's important to get kills. It's important to do that, but it's also really important to farm. Tip number two is that Deadlock is a MOBA and a shooter, but I would say it's a MOBA first. Having good aim is super important. It's a lot easier to hit your shots if you get those last hits. And some heroes, their abilities really depend on getting those crazy raw aims, like with Vindicta. But again, it's a MOBA first. There's a reason that when I'm in playing these games, especially in the top people, it's the same people. They're actually Dota players or they're League of Legends players that were really good. Not necessarily the Overwatch or Valorant players, etc. I'm not saying those games require not much skill, but it's the MOBA that's actually more important. You can't fight someone in this game that's way ahead of you with just raw aim. There's things like CCs, there's abilities, there's itemizations, there's passives. Very rarely can you clutch it out. Kills are important in this game, but they're not nearly as much as souls and getting map objectives and kind of winning the game. And typically grouping up and fighting together, chaining your ults, that's so much more important. I've had games where we had really good snipers that did really well in the beginning, but then because we didn't have that composition and we weren't engaging together and playing as a team, we lose the game. So it's not Deadlock is a MOBA first. Maximize souls, get objectives, get earn, get rejuve, play the map, play with your team, chain things together, and I think I lagged out here. But yeah. Tip number three I have is don't just blindly follow a build. I've seen players, in the beginning, I think it's fine that you get a pretty good build and you just kind of follow it. And if you do that, you'll be generally fine. But as you get to higher and harder games, you're going to start seeing heroes counter you and you have to counter them. For example, if you see someone on the other team that's carrying the game, or you see majority of their team just maximizing spirit, which you can see on the top right if you press tab, then maybe it's time to get spirit armor or improve spirit armor. If you're getting dived a lot and you're like a sniper, maybe it's time to get things that increase your mobility. You can use maybe boots. You can use something with extra stamina so you can dash more. You can maybe work on your abilities that help you kind of move faster. You can also get things like debuff reducer. So if you get CC'd, you can prevent yourself from getting CC'd. There's also debuff remover, which prevents if you get slowed hex or something, you can use that. You can also get something okay, I see a lot of lifesteal and a lot of regen from the enemy team. Then you can get something like toxic bullets. So the items that you choose are super important. It's very important to observe how the game is going, and then from that, figure out how you should play the game. So don't just follow a build. Try to figure out how the game is going and learn the items. That's what really takes a long time. And honestly, it's probably the hardest thing, especially when the game is there's all these items are coming in and there's patches. I'm sure if I don't play the game for a couple months and I come back, I'm gonna play like shit because I don't know which items are actually good. Tip number four is don't assume that every player that plays that hero plays it the same way, because there's very different ways to play each hero. So for instance, there's gun builds, there's spirit builds, there's builds that kind of revolve around only using one ability. I've played dynamos that are basically feeding, the entire mid game, but then they just kind of maximize their black hole and they end up winning the game for their team because they're getting all these good black holes, which are winning them team fights. So don't really assume that like, okay, if I see a Mo, he's gonna play the same way as somebody else. No, it's gonna be different depending on how the game is going and how they're choosing it. I've seen Bebops, they get Echo Shard, which allows them to do their ability twice, and they do like double hooks, and that literally wrecks you, bro. So just look at the items. The items give a clue on how the character is playing, and observe how the player is doing it. Over time, you're gonna learn these things, but don't assume that everyone plays the same way. Even yourself, if you see someone else playing the character a different way, don't be like, oh, this guy's being an idiot. He's not using this item. He might be doing a different build or might be playing around with a different ability. For instance, with Vindicta, I used to play this build that was focused on the stake ability. It was like Tether Maxer. So you throw a stake and then you throw CC and then alchemical fire or chemical fire. I can't say it properly. And then it would do damage in that area. And I would basically secure kills for my team. But lately I've been switching more to like a gun build in which uh, I'd still do stake, but then I focus on, doing shots. I do Quicksilver reload on my ult, and I just kind of shoot people with my ult, and my ult does a lot more damage. So it's really up to you. And this game has a lot of variety. You don't have to play a character the same way. You can do both things. There's weird combinations of characters. So don't, it takes time to learn. Don't assume there's only one way to play each hero. The last tip I have is don't sweat the early game too much or like the laning phase. There's always a way to come back. There's a reason why there's no surrender in this game. It's not like LoL. You can always come back. Sometimes the heroes that you're playing against are really good in early game and they kind of fall off later. Maybe your team comp is better for late game. You have better initiates. You have a better, more durability with your heroes. I've played games where like once a hero gets a certain amount of items, they start crushing me. So don't worry about it. You also have a lot more opportunities to farm. One good team fight or one getting the urn will basically change the game. So don't worry about it. Don't sweat the early frame. The main thing is don't get tilted. Keep on your farm. Try to keep ahead and try to win map objective. Try to get souls. Maybe don't gank as much, but don't worry too much about being behind, in lane phase. You can always come back. I've had games where I'm down 5 deaths and I still come back later. So of course it's important, but don't sweat it. You can always come back. Just one wave again of minions gives you like 800, so it's worth it. And that's it for the video. I want to make a short video. I also have another video for like 25 advanced tips. I published that yesterday. I'm going to try to make more videos like this. Maybe some funny videos. Maybe some videos about Deadlock. Or what the fuck am I saying? About Vindicta. Or the characters that I play at least. Because I'm playing them a lot. Yeah, because she has a very low win rate. And I'm curious to know why that is. I think it's because Vindicta is just very aim intensive. And characters like Warden that you just kind of run in there and you do blind is easier, and that's why they have a higher win rate. But yeah, more videos are soon to come. Thank you for watching. If you like these things, then subscribe. We'll have more of these, and yeah, have a good one. Enjoy the game. It's pretty good.